Hello and welcome. This is everything you need to know for week 6 fantasy football. We'll highlight everything that we saw in week 5 and what it means going forward. All right, Evan. One of the biggest stories of last week was the Colts. And it's something of an upset, I feel like. The Colts ended up capitulating. I thought Jonathan Taylor was capitulating. No. Jim Irsay and the Colts capitulated to the tune of a 3-year contract, $42 million, $26.5 million guaranteed. What was ironic about that is Jonathan Taylor barely played in his first day back, and Zach Moss just went completely nuts on the Titans here. 165 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 more catches for 30 yards. In other words, to me at least, an advertisement of why you don't pay running back. But anyways, I'm curious what you thought of the Jonathan Taylor contract and how you think the JT Moss split will go going forward.
Yeah, I was very happy to see Jim Irsay be forced to capitulate when it comes to Jonathan Taylor, because that tweet that he had about, oh, it's a privilege to play in the NFL. Like, the most privileged dude on the planet is literally Jim Irsay, who inherited an NFL football team whose value has grown exponentially via fantasy football. And then I mean, the most earned thing in the world is to be like a professional athlete. Do you know how much like work goes into that? And you got to stay healthy. And I mean, you got to stay out of trouble, and you can't go out partying with your friends. I mean, that is an earned thing. It's the opposite of a privilege. So, and then it was, super ironic that Zach Moss goes out and just balls out, and Jonathan Taylor like does nothing after the Colts paid him. But I mean, Zach Moss, I mean, I wrote it in matchups column, like he has just played too well for the Colts to push him aside, even after they gave Jonathan Taylor that massive contract. So I fully expect him to remain involved. I think I saw it in our private Slack that we're going to have Zach Moss actually projected for more work than Jonathan Taylor. No? Okay, 60-40 Jonathan Taylor. Is that what I saw?
I think for this week, we should start around 55-45, 60-40 in favor of JT. In my opinion, you cannot give JT this contract and let Zach Moss go out there and keep balling out. Like that's going to make them look really silly.
But I mean, if they're winning games.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're playing at the Jaguars this week. You know, I think that it's not great for Jonathan Taylor that Zach Moss has played so well, obviously. Like Jonathan Taylor has not played on pass downs typically anyways. I think Zach Moss will probably be in there at a minimum. But yeah, I think around 55-45, 60-40 for this week in favor of JT makes sense. We'll see where it goes from there. The other big story, Evan, which I do think is a good thing for both Moss and JT, sadly, because I hate it for everything else, Anthony Richardson hurt his shoulder pretty badly here. Looks like a grade 3 AC joint sprain. One thing we know about Gardner Minshew, he's going to check the ball down more to the running back position. They're not going to tush push. They're not going to lose rushing touchdowns to Gardner Minshew. So I do think it's better for Moss and JT. Anthony Richardson, though, was playing well, man. Even for the receivers, he was playing well. So, yeah, what's your reaction to Anthony Richardson going to be out? I saw a report 4 to 6 weeks on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. The bad news is that we lose a very exciting young player who, on a per-snap basis, was producing at a top 4 fantasy quarterback level through the beginning of his career. The good news is that Gardner Minshew is one of the best backups in the league. You know, he's been targeting the crap out of both Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, their rookie slot, early in the season. And he's capable of keeping the Colts competitive in games and getting the rock to the players that are usable in fantasy football.
Yeah. Jaguars, Browns, Saints next up for Gardner Minshew. On Anthony Richardson, man, he was going to have such a massive, outrageous fantasy season. But if he can't learn to protect himself, I mean, this is the second time he's gotten hurt on a designed run. He's got to learn to protect himself. All right. Speaking of injuries, man, this one is brutal. Justin Jefferson sustained a hamstring injury somewhat late in that Vikings-Chiefs game, which the Chiefs were able to hang on and win. Justin Jefferson, not your normal hamstring strain, because he has immediately been placed on IR, had to get a second opinion, allegedly, out at least 4 games. We have people like Schefter out here already saying that he wouldn't be surprised if Jefferson misses more than just these 4 games. Obviously, we all thought Justin Jefferson was the consensus correct number 1 overall pick. Also, you have the Vikings at 1-4 now. Like, who's to say how long Kirk Cousins is going to be there? So, fallout from the Justin Jefferson injury. Evan, any thoughts there?
I think the fallout is potentially massive because this team is 1-4. Justin Jefferson is by far the best player on the team. They, as you mentioned, they could start. I mean, they could start fielding calls. They may have already started fielding calls for Kirk Cousins. I had a really bad feeling about this injury when I saw that Justin Jefferson was going to seek multiple opinions, because that indicates that the initial opinion was not good. Yeah. And it turns out that that's the case. And it's not just Schefter saying that he might miss more than 4. It's Kevin Seifert. It's some of the Twitter docs that I know that you love. And I don't know. I mean, the short-term impact, it may be positive for Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne. Brandon Powell is going to be their slot receiver now, and TJ Hawkinson. But, their GM comes from the Sashi Brown school, and they were clearly in a rebuild before this, and I would worry that they're going to press the eject button, and like by the end of the season, we're going to see Jaron Hall, their rookie 5th-round pick, starting games at quarterback.
Yeah, it's massively, massively concerning. Obviously, you can't drop Justin Jefferson because, like, we saw these really severe hamstring injuries and guys come back. We're going to talk about Cooper Kupp here in a second. He only missed 4 games. He ended up coming back. Deontay Johnson had a really bad hamstring injury. He's reportedly coming back for week 7. So it's not like a death sentence for Justin Jefferson, but the Kirk Cousins stuff would obviously be bad. They're going to slide KJ Osborne into that X role that Justin Jefferson had. Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson's role won't necessarily change, but there are so many more targets to go around now just on raw volume. This is obviously a good thing for both of them. I could also see them going to more 12 personnel. They like this Josh Oliver guy they gave a bunch of money to. Use Josh Oliver in line, Hawkinson as a pure wide receiver a lot. And then they'll also have Brandon Powell to mix in as well. Evan, we're going to do a waiver show, but I think the people would probably want your take. How aggressive would you be on Powell or Osborne or anything like that on waivers?
Osborne, I mean, we've seen that he can play a little bit. He's very athletic. So he absolutely should be rostered, and I think somewhat aggressively. I like your idea that they might go to more multiple tight end sets and not involve Powell, because not only do they have Josh Oliver, who you mentioned they gave a lot of money to, they also have Johnny Munt, who Kevin O'Connell knows from the Rams. Mm-hmm. And, that's a dude that, like, Kevin O'Connell feels very, he trusts that dude. So I wouldn't be aggressive on Brandon Powell. I just thought that it was, worth bringing up that I think that he'll be their slot receiver. Doesn't mean he's going to play any more than 50% of the snaps.
Yeah, first game without Justin Jefferson will be at the Bears. Couldn't ask for a much better spot than at the Bears coming up this week, but then they have to play 49ers after that. One other note on Vikings. Alexander Mattison felt a little bit more heat from Cam Akers this week. Also, Mattison had an awful drop on a screen that probably would have gone for a touchdown. Snaps were Mattison 37, Akers 21, Ty Chandler 0. Opportunities were 11-7 in favor of Alexander Mattison. So, he's still been productive. He's still been, I believe, a top 20 fantasy running back, but he's starting to feel a little bit more heat, and these drops and fumbles. And
I think he's in his own head. He's actually like a real cerebral guy. If you ever heard him talk, he's like a real smart guy. I mean, he's got a confidence issue right now, I think.
Okay. Let's go to the Los Angeles Rams. On the good side of the injury stuff, Cooper Kupp was back and looked extremely healthy. I thought he might have a chance to be somewhat limited. No holds barred on Cooper Kupp. 41 routes on 42 dropbacks. Not empty routes either. He was targeted 12 times, caught 8 balls for 118 yards. Seems to be getting open at will, just like he had been previously for the last 2 seasons. I mean, looks like anyone who got the injury discount on Cooper Kupp, and we talk about how much more valuable these middle and late season games are than early season. Such a good injury related pick if you got him in round 2, 3, 4, 5. I think at this point, Evan, what did you think of Cooper Kupp's return to the Rams lineup in their loss to the Eagles?
Very, very promising, and I think it's still going to be a week by week situation. Like, there have been concerns ongoing that his body is starting to give out on him a little bit, and we'll see if he holds up. But it was very, very promising initially. I think you mentioned 41 pass routes on 42 Stafford dropbacks.
Yeah.
They felt so good about him coming back that they traded Van Jefferson to the Falcons. That to me is a sign of good faith from the Rams that they feel confident about Cooper Kupp's health going forward. And it's going to be him, Puka Nacua, and Tutu Atwell in the 3-receiver set. And that's pretty nice. I mean, it's looking good right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's so valuable. Like the not having Cooper Kupp for the first month of the season on your fantasy team obviously isn't great, but it's so much more valuable to have him now during the bye weeks and into the fantasy playoffs. This Rams team also, man, McVay is just obsessed with only using 3 wide receivers every single snap. 3 wide receiver set every single snap. The same 3 wide receivers he is now locked into, which I think is the right move. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell. Puka and Kupp can both play in the slot. So yeah, just really, really promising for all 3 of those guys. I know that they didn't get it done. Stafford wasn't great, but still 222 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Eagles. I think Matthew Stafford's going to continue to be like fine every week, almost every week, given his setup and wide receiver core. Let's go into Denver and get a win. Big revenge for Nathaniel Hackett after Sean Payton trashed him this over the offseason. The big story in this game, though, Evan, was Breece Hall. And the Jets and Robert Saleh hinted that it was time to let Breece Hall get loose, and they did it. 71% of the running back opportunities in this game for Breece Hall, 25 opportunities for Breece compared to just 6 for Dalvin Cook, 4 for Michael Carter. In fact, Dalvin Cook only played 11 snaps in this game. So huge seismic shift for Breece Hall. He will not be this productive every week because he's not facing the Broncos every week, but a seismic shift in usage for Breece Hall. What do you think of Jets win in Denver?
I mean, obviously it's a pristine matchup, right? Denver's defense is an absolute laugher, but Breece Hall isn't. And you give this guy a little bit of daylight, and I mean, he's as fast as any running back from a playing speed standpoint in the league. And it does suck. They just lost Elijah Vera-Tucker, probably their best offensive lineman, a dude that can play like almost any position on the offensive line. And they're always having injury issues, and so his ability to do that was extremely valuable to the Jets. Zach Wilson has looked, I mean, would you say competent for 2 games in a row?
Decent, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that gives you some hope that their offense can remain somewhat competent. But yeah, I mean, this was huge. Breece Hall had 22 carries. That's a career high for him. And we know that Dalvin Cook is absolute toast. So a very, very promising effort. Just got that opportunity, got that matchup, and smashed it.
I'm not here to say that Zach Wilson is a league average quarterback or anywhere near it, especially he had a comeback opportunity against the Chiefs. He had a game against the Broncos. Now he has to play the Eagles. Like, it's going to be worse for Breece in matchups like this against the Eagles because I think Zach is just not it. But obviously, with this kind of usage for Breece, you can much more comfortably start him every week now that Dalvin Cook has been iced. They are trying to trade Mecole Hardman per reports. That was just, a free agent signing that never seemed to work out. I still think that they did benefit from playing Mecole over like Randall Cobb, but whatever. Mecole Hardman's on the trade block. If anyone out there in the NFL, I know all the NFL GMs listen to this show, of course. If you're listening to this, Mecole Hardman reportedly on the block.
They just fast forwarded through that.
The fifth story is the Chiefs. And there wasn't like big news out of the Chiefs. There almost was big news because it looked like Travis Kelce sustained a really bad injury. He was able to come back in. Maybe the bigger story, though, Evan, is this offense. Something just seems off to me with this offense right now. You go into Minnesota, one of the best possible spots. Reduce Rashee Rice's role somehow, even though he had another good game. Kelce looks older than I've ever seen him look. I know Evan has some things to say about that. I don't know, man. Are you worried on the Chiefs offense right now? What do you think of their win in Minnesota?
I mean, with the caveat that I'm just like a total, complete Travis Kelce hater at this point for multiple reasons. He doesn't look very good out there. And, obviously he suffered. It turned out to be a low ankle sprain, and it sounds like he's likelier than not to play on Thursday against Denver. But the injury is also to the same leg on which he suffered that bone bruise on his knee that kept him out of week 1. And I mean, he just turned 34 years old, and he seems like he's preoccupied with things other than football. And I mean, he still was good in fantasy. I mean, he had 10 freaking catches. He scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
So and this is a get right spot major for the Chiefs, but you could also say the Vikings might have been a get right spot, and just no one can get open right now. I mean, their receiver core is a problem. Their right tackle is a problem. The fact that Travis Kelce is probably 70% of what he has been right now is a problem. We'll see if they can do it against Denver. I mean, Denver's defense has just been, the worst in the league.
I mean, although I agree with you about Travis Kelce, they have such a bond and rapport, and Kelce is so good at knowing how to get open. He left this game for a while, still had 11 targets. That's 5 more than anybody else on the team. Still caught 10 balls, So it's certainly.
No, he's still going to be good in fantasy as long as he's out there. You feel real confident. He's a top 2 fantasy tight end play every week.
The most frustrating thing to me was I thought Rashee Rice's role was trending up in this game. Rashee Rice only ran 10 routes on 43 dropbacks, which is a downgrade from what it had been the previous 2 weeks. Still got 5 targets on those 10 routes, caught a touchdown. I don't know why you would reduce Rashee Rice's role. Doesn't make much sense to me. He's still a guy that I want to hold and see what happens, but they're just refusing to do anything but this 6-man rotation at wide receiver.
Yeah, and now they have the short week, and when you hear coaches talk about the short week, they often say there's really no game planning involved. Very, very little. Mm-hmm. So will they change that on the short week? We'll see, but I would be a little skeptical.
I mean, he's up to 36% or something crazy targets per route run. I mean, when he's out there, he's going to get the ball. We'll talk more about that ahead of the showdown slate on Thursday. All right, that's it for the top 5 stories of the week. Let's now move into the NFC. We'll go alphabetical here and start with the Arizona Cardinals. Hung around, could not get it done, though, against the Cincinnati Bengals. Frustrating day for us. We had Marquise Brown over 4.5 catches at plus money in this game. He got 10 targets, ended up with 461-1, but he has such a good role right now. What did you think of Arizona, who honestly, they could have won the game? I mean, it looked ugly. The score didn't look great at the end, but they were in the game.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest story here is the running back situation.
Yep.
I like seeing Rondale Moore staying involved as a runner. I mean, we've talked about this. I think that the dude, you put on 11 pounds, he could be like Austin Eckler. I mean, he was used a ton as a rusher at Purdue. In his career now, he's up to 32 carries for 187 yards and a touchdown. He's locked in as their slot receiver. But the big story is the running back situation. James Conner, we know that he has a lengthy injury history.
Yep.
And possible MCL sprain, did not return after suffering that in the second quarter. So
yeah, report on James Conner is multiple weeks. I think we can expect multiple weeks on James Conner.
Okay, so then we're down to Amari DeMarcado, the undrafted rookie who backed up Kendra Miller at TCU, and then Keontae Ingram, who was out the last 2 games with a neck injury. They may sign somebody this week. I don't know. That's what I have on the Cardinals.
Yeah, so I think Amari DeMarcado is an interesting guy just because he plays so well in the pass game. So you get all the pass down work for a team that trails a lot, and you get some share of the base work, which I think he'll get, and you have a decent amount of juice. I mean, I think DeMarcado is a really, really interesting guy to have on your team right now. Evan said they have Keontae Ingram. Keontae Ingram's been awful in the NFL. Awful. They also have Corey Clement, who people might remember from the Eagles. He'll get called up for the practice squad, and they added Tony Jones, who I don't really think is an NFL player, but they have him as well. But yeah, I think I'd be very interested in DeMarcado. We'll talk more about that on the waiver show. Falcons. Well, we finally got it, Evan. the Kyle Pitts breakout happened. 7 catches, 87 yards, no touchdowns for Kyle Pitts in a game that Jonnu Smith also had a really good game. And Desmond Ridder went over 300 yards, which I'm sure people didn't even think was possible. So Arthur Smith and the Falcons were forced to actually get the ball in the air in this game. You saw the results. What did you think of Falcons game here against the Texans?
Yeah, I wonder if, could we sell Kyle Pitts high this week? He still got outsnapped by Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. I doubt you can get much for him, but you could try.
Okay. This was the best game of Desmond Ridder's career.
Yes.
Other than that, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot to add right now.
Yeah, I mean, Falcons are 3-2 now. They've won all 3 of their home games. Play the Commanders next. The thing on Kyle Pitts is and this whole thing, when they get down and they throw a bunch, I think Pitts can be fine. His usage is still really good. He still doesn't look completely healthy out there. But, in games like this, they have a home game against the Commanders coming up. They're going to try to run the ball in every play and have Ridder throw it 15 times. That's their goal in every game. So just have to understand that. Oh, one other note I had was Bijan was out carried by Tyler Algier here. And this was why we were talking about playing Bijan in cash on Sunday. And my concern with this stuff is always you just never know what Arthur Smith is going to do. Bijan's pass game role is good, but I don't know if it's something that we can rely on week to week to get 5 or 6 catches. So he ran 23 routes to Algier's 9, but getting out carried by Algier in a close game is just scary stuff. And obviously Bijan is awesome. Behind the back catch was awesome.
Wasn't that sick? Yeah. That was sick.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. And this is just talking head sports talk stuff, but Chris Canty, you remember the big 6'7" defensive lineman for the Giants? He was on a show talking about, and he's a smart guy, and he was talking about how the Falcons should just go offer the Bears a 2nd round pick for Justin Fields. And then the Bears start Nathan Peterman or this Tyler Bagent undrafted rookie the rest of the way. They get the first and 2nd or 3rd picks in the draft. They get Caleb Williams, and the Falcons get a movement quarterback who would be a big upgrade on Desmond Ridder. I just thought that was interesting because I think that the Bears and the Falcons should do that.
I think they should do that too. Given how well Justin Fields has played the last 2 weeks, I doubt the Bears will do it. They're gonna go.
Well, and another thing is the Bears, you're gonna have to pay Justin Fields.
Yeah.
His contract is coming up. There,
Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. This was an ugly one for the Panthers, man. I mean, no Amon-Ra St. Brown, no Jahmyr Gibbs for the Lions, and the Panthers still get absolutely smashed by this Lions team. Miles Sanders looked much healthier to me and was going to be the feature back. Chuba did end up out carrying Miles, but a lot of that was garbage time, so be careful there. But man, this offense is broken. We have Frank Reich. I don't know if you saw this clip from Frank Reich's press conference. He basically insinuated that the owner has too much power here, and that the owner was responsible for the meddled in the Bryce Young pick. Sounded like maybe Frank Reich wanted someone else. That's not exactly what he said. That's what people are insinuating.
That's not good. That is not good. I did not see that. I will go back and check after the show. That is not good. David Tepper is very hands-on.
Right.
We do know that.
Yeah, I mean, it is not good for Bryce right now. This, like I said, this is a really bad loss for them. I don't know any takeaways on the Carolina side.
I mean, Adam Thielen is balling out big time. What a steal he was in drafts. I was totally off of him. I mean, he looked completely washed last year. I think that it's an even split at this point with Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard. I know you mentioned that, some of it came in garbage time. This is the 2nd week in a row where their workloads were equal. They're just kind of swimming for stuff on offense because, they're willing to try anything. I mean, last week, Terrace Marshall had 10 targets. This week, 0 snaps.
Yeah. Adam Thielen is on pace for 129 catches through 5 games. His career high in Minnesota was 113. I mean, it's really out of control what's going on with Adam Thielen right now. But I didn't take Adam Thielen at all during the drafts either, but I feel like I was just trying to capitulate real fast because he's going to catch, obviously now, but like we said after week 1 or week 2, he's going to catch 80, 90 balls in this offense. All right, we already mentioned the Bears. I mean, I thought Justin Fields was really good once again in this game. Yeah, it was one route he kept throwing to DJ Moore successfully over and over and over again against the Commanders. But Fields was good. I mean, they scored 40 points 1 week after scoring 28 against Denver. And the reason that, we don't want to drop Justin Fields or panic or not start him because he can give you these passing games, but then he also gives you 11, 57, 0 rushing. I mean, it's just such a huge, huge, huge floor ceiling combo on Justin Fields. What did you think of the Bears' impressive Thursday night win over the Commanders?
Yeah, I mean, this was a big, big capitulation game for the spreadsheet socialists, and you absolutely love to see that. DJ Moore should have had a 4th touchdown, but the ref called him out of bounds. And he didn't go out of bounds, and then they didn't even show it on the replay.
Yeah,
that was
weird.
Very frustrating. But, I mean, this is kind of – well, if you remember last year, the Bears started really slow on offense, and then about this time, they started to make some tweaks on offense. And I mean, they were pretty impressive the rest of the way on offense. They were at least fun to watch. They finished 3-14 as a team. Okay. And their defense is still garbage. They're not going to have a good record. They're going to have a really high draft pick, but I think that they can be exciting on offense. Justin Fields can be a top 5 fantasy quarterback the rest of the way. DJ Moore is an every week wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. He's played 5 games. He's got over 100 yards in 3 of those 5 games. Really good player, and they need to keep targeting the crap out of him, and I think that they will.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that Justin Fields is back or is an awesome passer because he shredded the Broncos and the Commanders. But I will note his next 3 games, home versus Vikings, home versus Raiders, at Chargers. I mean, they have a chance to continue to play like this. And yeah, again, I think one of the reasons that I wasn't taking much DJ Moore before the season, because I did not think that Justin Fields would take a leap forward as a passer, doing it against the Broncos and the Commanders, it's a great sign, but I'm not ready to fully capitulate there yet.
Fair enough.
We should say on the running backs, Khalil Herbert's going to miss multiple weeks with his ankle injury. Roshan Johnson sustained a concussion in this game. He left early. Deontay Foreman was inactive, but he's healthy. He hasn't played a snap since week 1. They added Darrington Evans. So, assuming Roshan can get cleared, and again, he has the long week. This was a Thursday game. To get cleared, I think it'll be Roshan as the feature back and Foreman mixing in. What do you think about backfield going forward without Khalil Herbert?
I think that Roshan Johnson is going to be a fantasy starter against the Vikings, and then we'll kind of see after that. I mean, it sounds like Herbert's going to be out a month or more.
Yeah. Oh, we should note they traded Chase Claypool away. Very, within a year or so, or I don't even remember when that was, of giving up the number 32 or 33 overall pick for Chase Claypool. They go ahead and give away Chase Claypool for a 6th round pick or 7th round pick, something really ugly. So yeah, major cutting their losses on Chase Claypool.
Yeah, and this is a nice change for Chase Claypool, who can really build on his modeling career in Miami. It's a great venue for that.
Oh, let's go to the Dallas Cowboys, who got absolutely whitewashed. I mean, ugly, brutal beatdown of the 49ers of the Cowboys. Another game for the Cowboys where it's really hard to have takeaways. And this has been the theme of their season. Week 1, they scored a bunch of defensive touchdowns. They beat the Giants 40-0. Week 2, they smashed the Jets. That was never a close game. They lose to the Cardinals, which was weird, in week 3. Pats in week 4, they won 38-3, never a real game. San Francisco on Sunday night was never a real game either. They lose 42-10. So it's really hard to have takeaways. My only takeaways on Cowboys is that their schedule is about to get real soft. Chargers, 28th in yards per play allowed. Rams, 16th. Eagles, 11th. Giants, 31st. Panthers, 22nd. Commanders, 29th in yards per play allowed. I mean, I think buying on CeeDee Lamb and Dak and Tony Pollard is really, really strong. But I understand there's concerns also. What are your Dallas concerns, if any, here coming out of this 49ers game?
Yeah, so there is a big difference between descriptive analysis and predictive analysis. Very, very big difference. I think that all of those types of analysis are worth taking into consideration. But with a team like Dallas, who, and I've kind of harped on this in matchups, the Cowboys have gotten so many scoring position red zone opportunities and just flubbed them, that, I mean, that's gonna regress positively to the mean. And I was like, I pointed all that out in this write up against San Francisco, and I was like, I don't think that it's going to start to regress toward the mean in this particular game. But you mentioned that schedule. And yeah, I think they're all buys. I did find it interesting that so I think the descriptive analysis is that obviously they have really struggled, and I think the predictive analysis is that they're going to start to regress positively toward the mean, especially because Tyler Biadasz, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, all those dudes who missed time early in the season are now back playing. The schedule. And I did want to point out this one thing because I was listening to Move the Sticks podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, and I thought it was really interesting because he talked about how like the GPS speed timing for Dak Prescott whenever he's around the line of scrimmage, or his fastest runs, or just all of the movement stuff that they can now track. He's like way slower than he was when he was a rookie. Yeah. And that's not surprising to anyone. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone. But now we have like hard data that can prove that. He's getting a little bit older now, and he's not as explosive. He had that that big leg the big leg injury and all that. I mean, it just provides some context for why he's not nearly the same kind of a runner that he used to be.
Very interesting. Go to the Lions. So no Amon-Ra St. Brown, no Jahmyr Gibbs against the Panthers, no problem. Smoked them. Goff, as always at home, was awesome. 3 touchdowns on 28 attempts. Didn't even really need the volume. Dave Montgomery stuff has been so good, for the season long in best ball. We saw with Jahmyr Gibbs out, there's just like no incentive for the Lions to expand Jahmyr Gibbs' role, really. Demont has been awesome. What did you think of the Lions' easy win over the Panthers?
The Lions, this was another thing. I'm just going to copy and paste the Move the Sticks podcast, but they bring up some interesting stuff. And like, I love Daniel Jeremiah. He's like the man. He made the comparison between the 49ers and the Lions. Like the Lions are almost like the Diet Coke version of the 49ers. And, I think that they also have an upward trajectory because they haven't gotten the most out of Jahmyr Gibbs. Jameson Williams just came back. He was not good in his first game. But, they have that in-structure quarterback, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff. They can be really physical with the running game. They can be really, really explosive. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who did not play in this game, but, he's one of those run-after-catch studs like the 49ers have. The Lions actually have a way better offensive line, super physical up front. And, I mean, we just keep riding them. Just keep riding them because the Lions are a juggernaut offense.
Evan mentioned Jameson Williams did make his season debut, 15 routes on 30 Jared Goff dropbacks with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs out. 3 targets for Jameson Williams, but 2 catches, 2 yards, no touchdowns. Certainly better days ahead for Jameson Williams, but we can't deny that his last, 7 games, or his first 7 games in the NFL have not been very productive.
And Sam Laporta would be like the Lions version of George Kittle, and even more consistent. Right now, Sam Laporta leads all NFL tight ends in fantasy points, all tight ends in receiving yards, and he's tied for the league lead among tight ends in touchdowns. Yeah. And who would you take what tight ends would you take over Sam Laporta right now? Okay, we'll go Kelsey, right?
Yes.
We'll go Mark Andrews.
Yes.
Hawkinson?
With the Justin Jefferson injury, yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Probably not.
Good pickers of Sam Laporta.
Yep. Rest of the season top 150 will be out Wednesday. You can see where we have Laporta there. Let's go to Green Bay's game last night against the Raiders. My God, I mean, I knew Jordan Love was running hot those first couple of weeks. He was getting somewhat lucky, but this regression has been really, really bad on Jordan Love. 3 more interceptions last night. Ugly performance. Good side, Christian Watson had a full-time role. Coming off the hamstring, did not aggravate it. Also was a horse collar tackle away from a really long touchdown, like an 87-yard touchdown or something crazy like that. Should have been a clear path foul. But anyways, I know that.
Yeah, that was so frustrating.
So frustrating. I know that doesn't
exist. Showdown.
Yep. But yeah, not good. Evan, what'd you see out of the Packers against the Raiders last night?
Jordan Love, like there are all these positive stats on him early in the season when he was facing zero pressure against teams like the Vikings and the Bears, and he was leading the NFL in quarterback rating or whatever. And, and then he starts facing some pressure, and David Bakhtiari is not coming back. And he starts to do dumb things when there are people around him in the pocket. And I think that that's a big concern. I mean, especially with the state of their offensive line, because it's just not as good as it's been in past years. And so the people that got super excited about Jordan Love early in the season, obviously you need to temper those expectations. They're going into a bye right now. I wonder if they'll try to make a move for some offensive line help. Christian Watson is back near 100%, I think. Romeo Doubs has sort of established himself as a decent possession receiver. But the jury is still out on Jordan Love.
Yeah, it's not. I don't feel great about it right now. I will say, though, he is so aggressive down the field. Christian Watson's ADOT last night on his 7 targets was 26 yards. Average depth of target on his 7 targets, 26 yards on Christian Watson. I mean, it's going to be real boom bust, but when he hits, it's going to be massive. Saints went into Foxborough and embarrassed the New England Patriots. I was a little frustrated with myself for not playing a bit more Kamara. Usage is just awesome. Such a good pass game role and goal line role. And, he looks fresh, to be honest. Chris Olave had a little toe thing in warm-up, was able to play through it. Didn't earn targets at the rate that he normally does, but think that he's fine. Awesome defensive performance, though, for the Saints against the Patriots. What do you see out of them?
Yeah, I thought it was nice that they got both Alvin Kamara and Kendra Miller involved. Kendra Miller had 12 carries in this game and 4 catches. I think that needs to be maybe the foundation of their offense, because Derek Carr is just so mid.
Yeah.
And if Alvin Kamara is cooking and Kendra Miller, he's going to have better days than this. He only averaged 3 yards a carry, but I think he's a really talented dude, and he's an awesome change of pace back. And Alvin Kamara, like you mentioned, the fresh legs coming off the suspension. We know how good he can be in the passing game. Michael Thomas has at least 4 catches in all 5 of their games.
Yeah.
Chris Olave, are you worried about his health at all?
Yeah, I mean, the toe thing, he seemed to be able to brush it off, but it seems like he's banged up. It definitely seems like that. Yeah. And honestly, on the Olave stuff, he's been awesome at earning targets, but with Kamara back and Michael Thomas playing well, it's just not great for Chris Olave's chances of getting 10, 11 targets per game. Giants. Just no chance for the Giants against the Dolphins. I mean, no chance. Daniel Jones hurt his neck. He's probably going to be okay, but we'll see. They went back to Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson for the 2nd and 3rd most routes on the team behind Slayton at the expense of Hodgins and Paris, but this team is just so really struggling. We'll get to the Bengals offensive line stuff in a little bit. Here, I think there's probably a lot more smoke on Giants offensive line being a major, 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 major problem. What did you think of Giants getting beat down predictably by the Dolphins?
Yeah, and now the Giants have the Bills up next. The Bills lead the NFL in sacks, and Von Miller is going to start rounding into shape. The biggest concern I have right now is the health of Daniel Jones. I have seen mostly positivity on him. However, Daniel Jones has a history of neck problems. They're calling this a neck contusion. He said that it felt like the injury that ended his season in 2021. And I mean, this dude is taking a pounding, and that's not going to stop against the Bills. Yeah. So what do? Do you sit him down? I mean, give him a breather, play Tyrod?
Yeah. I mean, it's a mess right now. I think a breather would actually do him well. Tyrod is a capable NFL backup at least. So yeah, I'd probably give him a break. We'll see though. I mean, latest reports were that they think he has a pretty good chance to play. We'll see. But yeah, also we're watching Saquon injury. We are going to start with Saquon projected in for this week. I don't think that makes too big a difference for this team, but at least gives them some chance of turning some of these small little plays into explosive plays for the Giants. Eagles go into Los Angeles and get a relatively clean win over the Rams. I thought it was really good to see for fantasy. Jalen Hurts was running in a way with the football that I had not seen him really do this year. What did you think of Eagles game out there in LA?
AJ Brown is just like freaking God. It was I mean, this is the backfield. I think remains established.
Yep.
Which so that we want that reliability for fantasy, and we're getting that. DeAndre Swift is the clear lead back. They're not afraid to give him 20 touches. I mean, he had 23 in this one.
Yep.
So that's a really good sign for people that have him. They went out of their way to get the ball to Dallas Goedert. Whenever Dallas Goedert, I mean, I think he had like 4 catches and a touchdown in their first drive. Whenever Dallas Goedert is the squeaky wheel, like we got to start like paying attention to that, because that's happened a couple times and they just fill him up with targets when he is in that position. That's what I got on the Eagles.
I had some questions people sent in about Devontae Smith coming off the air ball. I looked into Devontae Smith's usage this year versus last year. It's pretty much the same. The only difference this year is that Devontae's down to like 20% of the targets, whereas A.J. Brown is up at 25%. In other words, A.J. Brown is separating as a target earner. I think a lot of the first read stuff is in favor of A.J. Brown. But like we saw with Dallas Goedert, like Dallas Goedert looked dead. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, let's feature Dallas Goedert this game. And he goes nuts. And I think Devontae Smith is certainly capable of that. So I'm not panicking on Devontae Smith, but A.J. Brown's asserting himself as the wide receiver 1 is clearly not great for Devontae. Let's go to San Francisco. Go and smash Dallas on Sunday Night Football. You get this huge George Kittle game, even with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel all out there. It's just so hard to predict these huge Kittle games. I mean, 3 touchdowns here. He now has 4 games of 25 or more fantasy points in half PPR. 4 times he's done that since 2021. Half PPR, 25 points or more tight end is an insanely large number. It's a slate breaker. But 14 times in that span, he scored 5 or fewer points, So it's just really, really hard to predict on Kittle. But anyways, 49ers are clicking on all cylinders right now. Look like the best team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of their win over the Cowboys?
Yeah, you look at some of their like advanced metrics and they are on pace, knock on wood, they got to stay healthy to be one of the best teams like of all time.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I mentioned last week that Matthew Barris, who's covered the 49ers for a very long time, he was talking about he thinks this is the most talented 49ers team since like Steve Young and Jerry Rice and Deion Sanders. And, they're freaking awesome. I mean, there's going to be inconsistency just because they got so many dudes that they need to get the ball to. We knew that before the season, though. And this happened to be a George Kittle week, and Brock Purdy's balling out. I mean, I saw that his MVP odds, which were like 50-1 before the season, are like down to like 7-1 or something.
Yes. Hopefully you guys listened to the awards podcast we did on Thursday with me and Reynolds and Gary. We talked about Brock Purdy. There was some 22-1, 21 out there last week. Hopefully you guys got a little nibble on that because it is down to 7-1 now. Other thing, man, Christian McCaffrey took some huge hits in this game. And I was like, all right, well, that's it. Now that's he's finally going to get hurt and everybody's going to try their victory laps like 2 years later. Dude just pops back up, man. 448 touches, 1,183 snaps since the start of last season without getting hurt for Christian McCaffrey. And, he's still a favorite to get hurt this season. He's a workhorse running back in the NFL, but just, goes to show you, man, guys can go from quote unquote injury prone to not very, very, very quickly.
One statistic I pulled from Robert Mays and Nate Tice, their their week 5 reaction. The 49ers had the highest success rate of any offense in the league this past week at 57%. The week before, they were above 60%. It's just like successful plays. And they did this against the Dallas defense.
Yeah.
Okay. So firing on all cylinders does not do justice to how awesome they are on offense right now. They look like an unstoppable force.
Let's go to the Seattle Seahawks. They were on a bye. They'll play the Bengals as they come out of their bye. My thought always when these teams come out of bye is like, maybe they took this time to work on the role for their rookies, i.e. JSN, Charbonnet, but maybe that is wish casting. Anything for you on Seattle, Evan, as they come out of their bye here, like I said, against the Bengals?
Geno Smith had his knee looked at on Monday Night Football week 4, but it seems like he's going to be fine. They had 2 offensive linemen carded in that Monday Nighter. in week 4. Phil Haynes and Damian Lewis, their guards. Can they get their tackles back? I don't know. I'm going to be looking at their injury report pretty closely because they're a very talented team, but they got destroyed by injuries offensively early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, improved offensive line play to me would allow them to run more 11 sets. I mean, they have been so into 12 sets, especially on first down, that it's been hard for JSN. Maybe I'm just wish casting probably, but maybe if the offensive line can get healthy and good, then they'll be able to go 11 more and get JSN out there.
That game was against the Giants on Monday Night Football in week 4. And by the end of the game, they only had one starter on the offensive line playing, Evan Brown. And so, yeah, I mean, they should be healthier.
Bucks are coming out of their bye as well. They will host the Lions. Certainly watching the Mike Evans hamstring situation. Mike Evans did pull his hamstring before the bye. Trey Palmer would be the backup / add there. But yeah, Bucks were playing good football before their bye. Anything on them heading into this Lions game?
I don't have anything to add. I think that this game could be fairly high scoring though. And so I'm excited to write it up.
Washington football team, bad loss. I mean, Bears, Thursday night, Island game. Everybody sees you get shredded by Justin Fields and DJ Moore. And for fantasy, I mean, I was kind of excited about a tight group here of McLaurin, Dotson, Curtis Samuel. It turns out that they have flattened out this target tree so wide. McLaurin leads the team with a 16% target share. I mean, that is sad. 16% is nothing. They have 9 guys between 5 and 16%. And then beyond that, in this game on Thursday, they just had to get Byron Pringle and Jamison Crowder in the mix as well. I mean, Eric Bieniemy is going like full Chiefs with the wide receiver stuff, throwing to a million different guys, and it's really, really hard. Even Sam Howell had like 30 DraftKings points. The receiver's still hard to get excited about Dotson or McLaurin or anything like that. So yeah, ugly one all around for the Commanders. What do you think of their loss to the Bears?
Yeah, I wonder if that will prove sticky. Because they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dudes targeted in that game. Logan Thomas looks really good.
Really good.
Really good. And he's playing, I mean, he's almost an every down player.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's a fantasy starter at the worst position again in fantasy football. Eric Bieniemy has gotten a lot of like love for being, a potential NFL head coach. How are you getting your quarterback just destroyed by unblocked pass rushers all game long? The Bears entered that game with 2 sacks in 4 games, and they wind up sacking Sam Howell 5 times. He's on pace to take 99 sacks. Okay, he got hit 11 times by the freaking Bears. So I don't know. I think the jury is still out on Eric Bieniemy. There were so many unblocked pass rushers in that game. It was very, very frustrating.
I don't think Eric Bieniemy has been very good. I also say that I think some of the blame for the sacks has to go on Howell. He does not throw the ball away. Like, he's back there, and the clock is not going off for him to throw it away. But yeah, obviously
that is true. But when you can see free pass rushers not getting blocked, that's a coaching issue. I mean, unless it's Sam Howell, like, not calling out the right protections at the line of scrimmage. But this has been going on week after week after week after week. When you play the Commanders, your pass rush statistics are going to spike.
Yeah, I mean, been streaming fantasy defense against Howell all season, been super, super profitable. Like Evan said, on pace to take the most sacks in NFL history by a wide margin. Let's keep it moving here to the AFC. Start with the Baltimore Ravens. Weird loss for the Ravens in Pittsburgh. Thought Lamar Jackson deserved way better. Ton of drops and ugly play from the wide receivers. Like, Odell Beckham isn't it. And I thought that was probably the case before the season. Rashad Bateman may not be it. And that surprised me because I thought Rashad Bateman had a chance to be a really good NFL player. But yeah, Lamar was better than the stats show here, I think, in this game. Evan, what do you think of the Ravens' loss in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that's indisputable that Lamar Jackson was better than the numbers show. Rashad Bateman had a brutal drop of a touchdown. They had to end up settling for a field goal. The Ravens had 7 drops in this game against Pittsburgh. just an ugly, ugly effort. Justice Hill, who previously in the previous game barely played 39 snaps in this game. Gus Edwards had 12 touches. Justice Hill had 11. They did not activate Melvin Gordon. They activated Kenyon Drake, and he played 1 snap. The wide receiver delineation now, Zay Flowers at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Nelson Aguilar is now the number 2 in the slot. And Bateman and Odell Beckham, who have both been dreadful, are now rotating at the other perimeter spot. Now they were coming back from they've been coming back from injuries, so maybe that's maybe this is a temporary thing. But I mean, Nelson Aguilar has been better than Odell Beckham and Rashad Bateman, so I would say that that's deserved.
I mean, to me, Zay Flowers is the one. Like, Zay Flowers is an awesome asset to have right now. He had a 29% target share in this game, 28% target share on the season. I mean, volume is massive for Zay Flowers, but his average depth of target is really rising. I mean, at first they were using him as extension of the run game. In week 4, Zay Flowers average depth of target 13.3 yards. In week 5, 16.7, which is huge. And so you get Zay Flowers both deep and short and with a ton of volume. I mean, Zay Flowers is an awesome asset right now.
Yeah, I like that. I think that may indicate that they probably saw him as more of a short area guy initially, but maybe now they're realizing that he's they're actually their best downfield wide receiver asset. So yeah, all the more reason to get him more high value targets and keep him in the range where he's seeing 8, 9, 10 targets per game, because that's the range that he had 11 on Sunday.
Bills go across the pond and lose to the Jaguars in London. One thing I noticed is Josh Allen's just been not running as much this year, period. I mean, he's down to 1.6 designed rushes per game. Last year, he was at 4.2. That makes a big difference in fantasy. We know he has this massive ceiling. We saw it in week 4. But yeah, bit of a surprising performance by the Bills out there in London. What did you see out of their game against the Jags?
Yeah, not a good day for their running game, which had been, showing some serious signs of life in the previous couple games. Over his last 2 games, James Cook has only 25 yards on 17 carries. Playing from behind obviously did not help in this game against London. The team looked like it was out there dragging, and it's not surprising in hindsight. The Jaguars played 2 games in London, and they didn't fly back to Jacksonville. They stayed there, and they were just they had so much more energy than the Bills. It was, did you see the quotes about someone was talking about, or no, Josh Allen was talking about it, and he was like drinking coffee because he couldn't sleep on the plane, and he was just going to stay awake. I mean, you see the Ravens now. The Ravens flew to London. They're playing on London on Sunday morning. They flew to London on Monday morning.
Yeah.
So they're going to get that whole weekend. The Bills did not do that, and I think that they kind of paid the price.
Okay. I will say, Steph Diggs is having an awesome year, man. Awesome year. Another awesome game from Steph Diggs. And Gabe Davis has a touchdown in 4 straight. Just a lot of that regression that we talked about before the season on Gabe Davis is hitting, which is always good to see.
Gabe Davis, over his last 4, 16 catches, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, 81% of the snaps he's playing on the year.
Go to the Bengals. So this was the spot that everybody pointed to. If Joe Burrow and his calf can't do it here, maybe he really is done. And so to me, like I don't want to get too deep into it, but I was just frustrated because I feel like a lot of this injury stuff gets overblown when guys are out there and playing. Not only was Joe Burrow back, goes 36 of 46 for 317 yards, but he had like a 10-yard run also where the calf looked completely fine. So I'm not saying he's not hurt. I'm just saying that these guys can figure out ways to play through it. It's really, really hard to quantify. I did a bunch of double counting this week in projections. In other words, we had Joe Burrow stuff docked already for his injury. And then I was like, God, beyond that, I'm going to dock him again, which is really, really bad to do in fantasy when you're looking at projections. Do not want to be double counting. But yeah, what was your take, Evan? Do you think Joe Burrow is back now, or is this a product of Cardinals defense, or what'd you see?
No, I think he definitely looked back. We talked about that pocket movement that was so critical. He did not have that early, kind of snapped out of it. I don't know. Maybe they gave him a better drug. They figured out a better form of Teradol, which, by the way, is the bomb. Teradol. Maybe I don't. He like was very confident in this game. Like I thought that really stood out. Like the swagger was back. He's throwing the deep ball again, poised. The pocket movement so critical to his game, and Jamar Chase is just an absolute beast.
Unreal.
And they're giving him more layup targets.
Yeah, especially with T. Higgins out. I mean, it was just Jamar Chase all day. I was a little bit surprised. And Tyler Boyd did have a touchdown called back, but Trenton Irwin out targeting Tyler Boyd. Evan was out or mostly out, I think, on Tyler Boyd. This past week, I was in on Tyler Boyd, and that was expensive seeing him get out targeted by Trenton Irwin and get a touchdown called back. So, yeah.
Irv Smith, 50 snaps, 33 routes, 0 targets.
Cleveland Browns were on a bye. They have a very difficult matchup in week 6, home against the 49ers. Certainly will be a tough spot for Deshaun Watson, who has had really just one good game, that Titans game. That's the only good game I've seen him play as a Brown. Evan, anything for you on the Browns as they come out of their bye here?
I just think that something weird is going on with Deshaun Watson. Sitting out a game with a bruise on his shoulder. The Browns have said no structural damage. Kevin Stefanski came like called him out.
Yeah, that was weird.
He said that Deshaun Watson's the reason that he was inactive in week 4 was a unilateral decision made by Deshaun Watson himself. They come out of the bye, he's still not practicing. I mean, the speculation in Cleveland, and I read a bunch of articles on this, just looking around for any kind of rumors. The speculation in Cleveland is that he has a more significant injury than the team is letting on. I don't know. Something weird is going on. Like Kevin Stefanski does not call out players in the media.
Agreed. That was weird. It was weird for sure. It seemed like the Browns expected him to be able to play through it, and Deshaun made the call not to play. And yeah, we'll see. Broncos. I mean, this has got to be rock bottom for the Broncos after Sean Payton, of course, famously disparaged Nathaniel Hackett for the coaching job, called the worst coaching job he's ever seen, which may or may not be true. But either way, I'm all for putting people on blast. I thought that was kind of a low blow by Sean Payton. In the end, Nathaniel Hackett comes to Denver with Zach Wilson as his quarterback and beats Sean Payton and Russell Wilson here. Embarrassing loss for the Broncos. What do you see out of that game, Evan?
Yeah, see, when Sean Payton said that stuff, I actually kind of liked it because I've never been a fan of Nathaniel Hackett, and it was true. And I like Sean Payton. But what you can't do after you say that is come out fielding a team like this who can only beat the freaking Raiders, and then you lose at home to Zach Wilson's Jets. So that really makes Sean Payton look like a dick.
Yeah. By the way, I know Marvin Mims fumbled a couple times in this game, but still, he can't get above 12 routes. 12 routes is his season high in routes. They need his explosive ability out there so bad, but clearly they do not trust him to do so. At this point, I'm trying to hold on to Marvin Mims still in deeper bench season-long leagues, but yeah, Sean Payton's being very stubborn with that one.
Are we thinking that Javonte Williams is coming back this week?
Yes, I think he will be back, but I do think that McLaughlin has earned the right to continue to play and play more. Yeah.
So that's a 3-man backfield, and we know that those are not fun.
No. Houston loses a tight one in Atlanta. I thought it was encouraging for Dameon Pierce that he was the only running back to get a carry in this game. Tank Dell, unfortunately, sustained a concussion. We are watching that to see his status. But yeah, I didn't have a lot of other takeaways from this Texans game. Stroud had, another very good game. And I'm sure right now, Frank Reich, probably what he was thinking is like, man, I wish I had Stroud instead of Bryce Young. Evan, what'd you think of the Texans' loss down there in Atlanta?
So the Texans got back their left tackle and their left guard, Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. That was really big. Now they have like a really solid left side of their offensive line. You remember they were playing without 4 starters for several weeks there, and Stroud was still ripping it up, which, again, I think goes to show that, Stroud's immediate NFL competency, as well as a really positive reflection on Bobby Slowick, their OC, who, I mean, right now trending toward being an NFL head coach sooner rather than later. That'll be the first ever Pro Football Focus alumnus to become an NFL head coach. The Cocoon is not going to like that. Tank Dell concussion. He missed the second half of this game. The big benefit, and then Robert Woods missed time with a rib injury. The big beneficiary of that was Dalton Schultz, who had 10 targets. But those guys are going to be back, and we know how Nico Collins has been playing. So I haven't changed my opinion about the Texans or anything from this past game.
Jaguars get a really good win in their second home, London, over the Bills. Travis Etienne the last 3 weeks. I mean, out of all the backfields, like everyone is almost everyone's devolving into a committee. The Jaguars are actually going the other way. Last 3 weeks, Travis Etienne, 181 snaps. Tank Bigsby, 30. Dearness Johnson, Jermichael Hasty have gotten scraps. And Etienne's getting some goal line work too. So awesome combination of talent, offensive scheme, and role for Travis Etienne right now. Really good win, though, for the Jaguars. Evan, what do you think of them?
Yeah, Etienne looks so explosive right now. I mean, he is hot right now. And they are not afraid, even though he's not the biggest dude, they are not afraid to fill him up with touches. I wound up being way too low on Travis Etienne entering the season. And, I capitulate. But, I mean, he's, if you got him, like, cap tip to you, because he looks freaking awesome right now. He looked awesome on that turf at the Tottenham. It's Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
Wait, is that the same thing?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay. Christian Kirk played ahead of Zay Jones in 2 receiver sets in this game. Maybe that was because Zay Jones was coming back from the injury.
Yeah.
Either way, I think that we can feel very confident about starting Christian Kirk every week. Calvin Ridley, he had been going through some struggles, and he balled out here. 7 for 122. I mean, he's like, it's like they were never going to go away from him. So he was like the easiest buy low in fantasy, and that window has already shut.
Yeah, it's people are so reactionary on like stuff like Calvin Ridley. He has the drops, he has a couple bad games. He sucks. He's not an alpha, and then in this game he happens to catch 7 out of 8 balls. And see, I told you Calvin Ridley's an alpha. I will say on Christian Kirk, a couple of people sent me a story of a neighbor narrative. There's a story in the Jacksonville media somebody sent me. Christian Kirk, Trevor Lawrence, and Doug Peterson all bought houses together in the same neighborhood in the same cul-de-sac. And I mean, Christian Kirk's been getting fed, man. So I'm just saying, cul-de-sac narrative is live. Chargers. Chargers were on a bye. They will face the Cowboys as they come out of their bye in the Kellen Moore Bowl. We are expecting Austin Eckler back for this game, which is obviously a huge boost for them. Josh Kelly had really been struggling. I think as they come out of the bye, the most logical narrative would be Quentin Johnston is going to be featured more, get the rookie in there with Mike Williams out for the season, reset, and go from there. Evan, what do you think about QJ? Anything else on Chargers as they come out of their bye?
Yeah, weeks 1 through 3, Quentin Johnston's route participation was 28%. In week 4, 71%. And then they have the bye to further incorporate him. So I expect him to be a near every snap player. They need him. They need to give him some layup targets. He was a run after catch beast in college. And I think that they will do that. I think that they're a pretty smart coaching staff where we can make some assumptions about their rational decision-making. Expecting Austin Eckler back. That's all I got.
Yeah. We'll talk more about the matchup on Friday, but certainly a difficult one here against the Cowboys, despite what happened on Sunday night. Las Vegas gets an ugly win over the Packers on Monday Night Football, 17-13. I don't know if you saw, Evan. Michael Mayer's alive. You laughed at me when I said that Michael Mayer and Austin Hooper might be comparables. They have about the same stat line this year, though, do Michael Mayer and Austin Hooper. Career high 2 catches in this game for Michael Mayer.
I mean, come on.
All kidding aside, Josh Jacobs' role is awesome. 20 more carries, 5 more targets. I didn't think Devontae Adams' shoulder was really an issue, but really weird. Only 4 targets for Devontae Adams in this game, 10 for Jacoby Myers. I thought that Jacoby Myers and Juju Smith-Schuster were kind of like a neutral swap. I mean, that is not even close to being right. Jacoby Myers is so much better than Juju, and Jacoby Myers is a very good NFL player. Evan, what did you think of Raiders last night?
Yeah, you needed him on the show in the showdown.
Yeah.
I mean, I have not like watched the all 22 or anything like that, but I mean, I watched the game, and my sense was that the Packers were trying to make sure that Devontae Adams was not going to beat them.
Yeah.
And Jacoby Myers just went to work. I mean, he had an awesome game. He's one of these dudes just has no fear going over the middle, and he had a great game. And you're right, he is a really legit number 2 receiver in the NFL. You mentioned only 2 catches for Michael Mayer and 2 for Austin Hooper. Michael Mayer took his for 39 yards. Austin Hooper only gained 11.
Man, I know it's been going on for a while. The Patriots are like incapable of evaluating wide receivers. They did a basic 1-for-1 swap for basically the same amount of money, Juju for Jacoby, and they had Jacoby in their system. They couldn't evaluate him and see that he's better than Juju. I mean, it's just scary what's going on with New England.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
That they could miss that badly. And that's a dude that they had.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't even self-evaluate
Exactly.
wide receivers. I mean, that's really bad.
Dolphins, so they get the easy win over the Giants. I mean, just no chance for the Giants whatsoever. The scheme for Tyreek Hill, for Devon Achane, for Raheem Mostert, for all these guys is absolutely incredible. Everybody's waking up to the fact that, guess what? Fastest team in the league in this scheme is going to be really hard to stop. Now, a little bit before this show, we got sad news, Evan. Devon Achane is going to miss multiple weeks due to a knee injury. Devon Achane was at 2.37 DraftKings points per touch through his first 47 NFL touches. Has to be some kind of record. But yeah, certainly sad for Devon Achane here, expecting him, I don't know, multiple weeks, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Good news is Raheem Mostert's still playing at a really high level. Jeff Wilson's coming off IR. I have a bunch of Jeff Wilson bags from best ball season that hopefully good now. And I do think that they can get Salvon Ahmed, Chris Brooks into some like speed back roll stuff as well. What's your reaction to the Achane injury?
Just sucks, man, but it sounds like a high ankle sprain, which, we hate those. Have they put him on IR yet?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Yeah, and as you mentioned, Jeff Wilson had more touches than Raheem Mostert when they were playing together last year.
Yeah.
So Jeff Wilson, if he hasn't been picked up, like, he is an aggressive waiver ad. This team is going to continue to score a ton of points. I talked about them losing Teron Armstead at left tackle. Kendall Lamb who's been around, and I mean, he's always been like, he would get good PFF grades when he would like get spot starts. He has been he's been very good in place of Teron Armstead. So that makes you feel confident to an extent. Tyreek Hill leads the NFL in receiving yards by 79. That's like, a solid game, 79 receiving yards. But apparently he was seen limping. I didn't see it, but he was like limping in this game.
I didn't see that either. I didn't see that. I, as far as I know, Tyreek Hill is fine. The Achane thing, though, to be clear, he had an ankle injury in this game. It was fine, came back. The injury that's going to put him maybe on IR is a knee injury. So just to be clear on that one. I do think that there's like, you can make a case that Jeff Wilson will be Mostert's direct backup, or he plays the same role as Mostert. And then they need like a speed back, which would either be Salvon Ahmed or Chris Brooks. So I'm curious to see how it plays out with Miami, but I do think that's in the range of outcomes. But I do think they like Jeff Wilson. And so, yeah, it'll be really, really interesting. We'll talk about it more on waivers, but Jeff Wilson would be my priority by far, like Evan said. But in deep leagues, I would not ignore Ahmed or Brooks.
Yeah, I wouldn't ignore Chris Brooks in particular. He was active over Salvon Ahmed this week. He had a 52-yard run earlier in the season. And I mean, Raheem Mostert does not have a track record of staying healthy, and neither does Jeff Wilson. Oh, yeah. So Chris Brooks is a dude to stash.
Last thing on Miami, I thought Jalen Waddle had his best game of the season. I know the box score was only 5-35-1, but he had another touchdown called back, and he actually earned more targets than Tyreek Hill in this game. 10-9 did Jalen Waddle. So yeah, still stay in the courts on Waddle.
If we had to reorder the top 3 picks, now Justin Jefferson is out, and if we had to reorder the top 3 picks in fantasy football, how would you rank them? Obviously McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, and Chase.
Yeah, how could it be anything else?
Yep.
Rest of season top 150 coming out Wednesday.
Nice.
New England are getting on me because we never say anything about New England because I'm so bored and I never know what to say about New England. But I get messages from Patriots Laundry who are not upset with this. So I figured something we could talk about here, Evan, after their latest loss, which was 34-0 to the Saints, is it time to bench Mac Jones in favor of Bailey Zappi? Any thoughts on that? Any other thoughts on the Patriots here?
I just don't think that they're going to have any success with Bailey Zappi either. They've now sat down Mac Jones in consecutive games. I know after the first one, they said that it was because of garbage time. This was garbage time again, too. They've lost consecutive games by 30-plus points. Their offensive line is a problem. I thought that he would at least be league average entering the season. No, they're not getting good offensive line play. And Mac Jones he seems like kind of like a head case, and they're no one's getting open.
Yeah.
They're the slowest offense in the league. It's almost like, back in the Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, those George Young, days, like they would build for size. They would emphasize size. And it seems like that's what the Patriots have been emphasizing, and that is not working because they're so freaking slow. And they got to play this little dude, Demario Douglas, who has – what's his nickname?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but he also sustained a concussion.
Right, and so did Juju.
Yeah,
I don't know. They're a freaking mess.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw them in some power rankings ranked as the number 32 overall team. I don't think that that's accurate, but like that's what we're talking about here. And their secondary has been just destroyed by injuries. Christian Gonzalez is like one of the best players on the team. He's done for the season.
Yeah. Tyquan Thornton, I think, will be back relatively soon, but it's just really hard to be optimistic. Steelers somehow beat the Ravens on the back of some big George Pickens plays. I will say, credit to Matt Canada, like Pickens' route tree certainly changed, and now George Pickens is seeing 25 to 35% of the targets. Now, what will happen when Deontay Johnson comes back? Latest report is Deontay Johnson should be back for week 7 from his hamstring injury. Evan, what do you think of Steelers' win over the Ravens?
I mean, their defense is just so really good, and that's what this team is built on. Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt just destroyed the Ravens tackles. But offensively, I mean, Jaylen Warren, I think, continues to outplay Najee Harris. They're very depleted in their skill position core. Not that it would necessarily make a difference, but I mean, obviously they did not have Pat Freiermuth or Deontay Johnson in this game. Freiermuth has a bunch of concussions at this point, doesn't he? I mean, it's starting to get a little scary for him. Those guys are expected to be back after the bye. I mean, the Ravens lost this game. I don't think that the Steelers won it.
Yep, agreed. Last team we're going to do here today is the Tennessee Titans. So Titans lose a close one in a game that Anthony Richardson left. Gardner Minshew comes in for the Colts. To me, this was the most striking Derrick Henry game yet this season in terms of usage because it was close throughout. I mean, this game was really close, literally the entire game, and yet Derrick Henry only 16 opportunities compared to 12 for Tajee Spears. This was a game like 2 years ago where Derrick Henry would get 25 touches, no problem. Snaps were only 37-32 in favor of Henry. Of course, Tajee Spears out-routed Derrick Henry 20-14. So, yeah, I mean, some of these old guy fades that you had on, Evan, with Kelsey and Henry are certainly looking good. Henry's going to have huge games when the Titans have a huge day offensively. But games like this where it's close and the usage isn't great, definitely scares me a bunch. What do you think of Titans' loss to Indy?
Well, we need to continue to start perimeter receivers against the Colts because this was an eruption game for DeAndre Hopkins. He went 8 for 140. That's just a trend that I think we're going to be able to use all season. The Colts also lost one of their starting perimeter corners in this game, Dallas Flowers. So, I mean, they're just getting worse out there. Traylon Burks was out again. Tajee Spears has played over 50% of the Titans' offensive snaps in 4 of 5 games, and he has at least 8 touches in 4 of 5 games. He's a guy who in deeper leagues at this point, with the buys setting in, he is flexible.
Yeah. No ACL, no ACLs, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. ACL, always very overrated. Okonkwo Chig Okonkwo, this is so weird. He had a career high 9 targets, but season low 58% snap rate. I wish that they made more of a commitment to him being an every down player. It looked like they were early in the season, but he was not. He was not here.
Yeah. All right. That is going to do it for your week 5 recap, looking ahead to week 6 and beyond. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we enjoy doing it every week. Be sure that you are following us on Twitter at Adam Levitan, all one word, at Evan Silva, all one word, at Establish the Run, all one word. If you are watching on YouTube, we'd appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. It is indeed free. You'll get to know when we put content up on the YouTube machine. For Evan, for producer Luke, for producer Ryan, for the King Jackson, for producer Steven, everybody behind the scenes. It's a laundry list. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.